What if a single moment on a freezing New York morning exposed a connection no one expected? A former president, a forgotten war hero, and a secret that had been buried since Afghanistan. It began outside Trump Tower, where cameras were ready to capture yet another viral stunt. But what the world didn't know was that this wasn't about politics, fame, or publicity. It was about a debt that could never be repaid, and a chance encounter that would rewrite two lives forever. It was just after sunrise on Fifth Avenue, when the morning rush began. Delivery trucks rumbled by. Office workers hurried past with overpriced coffee in hand, and phones were already glowing with emails. Nobody noticed a woman curled up against a heating vent. Just another invisible figure on New York streets. But then something unusual happened. Donald Trump stepped out of Trump Tower, breaking from his security detail. The crowd stirred instantly. Reporters scrambled for their cameras. Phones shot up into the air. Everyone assumed it was just another staged moment, the kind that would dominate headlines for a day and vanish by tomorrow. What nobody realized was that Trump wasn't walking toward the flashing lights. He was walking toward her, a homeless woman in a worn military jacket. And in his pocket, he carried a photograph that held the key to why this moment would shock the world. Because this wasn't just a photo op. This was about a soldier, a war, and a lullaby that had once kept a dying man alive in the sands of Afghanistan. Her name was Emily Martinez, and long before the streets of New York became her battlefield, she wore a different uniform. Emily was once a decorated combat medic in Afghanistan, known for her steady hands and unshakable focus under fire. She carried a 22-pound medic bag through dust, chaos, and gunfire, saving lives when every second counted. For her bravery, she earned medals that now sat in a storage unit she couldn't afford to visit. But medals don't stop nightmares. Valor doesn't silence flashbacks. And when the war followed her home, everything began to unravel. Her medical practice in Philadelphia collapsed under the weight of PTSD. Bills piled up, appointments slipped, and soon her apartment was gone. Friends and family tried to help at first, but patience has limits. And before long, Emily found herself with nothing but a backpack, a pair of dog tags, and memories that wouldn't let her sleep. On the streets, invisibility became her armor. Most people looked past her as if she wasn't there at all. Yet every night, against the cold concrete, she reminded herself of one thing. She had survived worse. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that someone had been searching for her all along. While the crowd outside Trump Tower thought they were watching politics meet spectacle, something far deeper was unfolding. Because Trump wasn't just acting on impulse. In his jacket pocket, he carried a photograph, an image of a young combat medic in Afghanistan, standing beside a medical unit flag. That medic had once done something extraordinary. She'd kept his nephew alive in the middle of a battlefield inferno. 3 years earlier, Mark Trump had been pulled from a burning Humvee, bloodied and fading fast. The chaos of gunfire and flames could have ended his story then and there, but one voice held him to life. A voice singing a Spanish lullaby, steady and calm, while trained hands fought to stop the bleeding. Mark never forgot that sound. He spent years searching for the medic who saved him, with nothing more than a blurred memory and a unit photo. And now, against all odds, Donald Trump thought he might have found her again. Not in a hospital, not in a ceremony, but on a cold New York street corner. The world thought they were seeing a viral moment. What they were really witnessing was a reunion years in the making. The golden doors of Trump Tower swung open, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Security scrambled, cameras zoomed, and the crowd pressed forward. But instead of heading toward his investors or the flashing microphones, Donald Trump stepped out of formation and began walking directly toward the woman in the military jacket. Phones shot up higher. Reporters shouted questions. His security detail tried to form a protective wall, but Trump brushed past them, focused on only one thing. Emily froze. Combat instinct sharpened her senses, the kind of alertness that once kept her alive overseas. This wasn't just attention from a stranger. Something about the way he looked at her was different. When their eyes met, the noise of the city seemed to fade. Trump's gaze dropped to the medic insignia stitched into her worn jacket. Recognition flickered across his face. And in that instant, Emily realized this was no act of pity, no passing glance from a man of power. Trump wasn't approaching her because she was homeless. He was approaching because he knew who she was. And the truth he was about to reveal would collapse the distance between their two worlds in a single heartbeat. The crowd around them fell into a strange silence, broken only by the clicks of camera shutters and the buzz of live streams going viral in real time. Trump stopped just a few feet away, ignoring the frantic whispers of his security team. He looked at Emily with an intensity she hadn't seen in years, the kind of look soldiers gave each other when something unspoken passed between them. "That jacket," he said quietly. "Afghanistan?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. 2 tours. Combat medic. The words came out crisp, automatic, drilled into her long ago. Trump's jaw tightened, as if he just confirmed something only he suspected. Then, with a voice low enough to cut through the chaos, but clear enough for Emily to hear, he said the words that made her knees almost give way. "You saved my nephew's life." Emily's chest tightened. The burning Humvee. The young soldier's terrified eyes. The lullaby she'd sung to keep him conscious. She'd never known if he lived. She'd carried that question with her through every cold night on the streets. And now, standing face to face with a former president, she was being told the answer she never expected, that he hadn't just survived, but that he remembered her. For the first time in years, Emily's hand stopped shaking, but her world tilted, because this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about a debt of life that had finally come full circle. The instant Trump's words reached her, the crowd erupted. Reporters shouted over each other, desperate to catch every second. Phones live-streamed the scene across the world before Emily could even process what she'd heard. Clips flooded social media within minutes. Trump approaches homeless vet. Who is she really? PR stunner real? Hashtags trended before the dust even settled. Some viewers praised the moment as powerful. Others dismissed it as scripted. And still, nobody knew the full truth. Emily barely noticed the noise. Her mind was stuck in Afghanistan, replaying the memory of that young soldier in the burning Humvee. She had never even learned his name. And now she stood in front of the man whose nephew owed his life to her lullaby. As security tried to usher them toward the tower's doors, Trump leaned closer and said firmly, "He's alive, and he's been looking for you ever since." Emily froze. Her breath caught. 3 years of silence, of wondering, of not knowing, all shattered in an instant. Inside the tower, away from the cameras, Trump finally explained. Mark had not only survived, he had built a foundation for veterans, inspired by the medic who saved him. And today wasn't just about gratitude. It was about giving Emily a chance to step back into the fight, not as a forgotten veteran on a street corner, but as a leader who could change thousands of lives. The world thought they were watching a 30-second viral clip. What they were really seeing was the beginning of a movement. The elevator doors slid open on one of the upper floors of Trump Tower. Emily stepped out hesitantly, her worn boots scuffing against marble polish brighter than any street corner she'd slept on. For a moment, the noise of the city and the frenzy outside melted away. By the window stood a man she almost didn't recognize at first. Older now, steadier, but with the same eyes that had once looked up at her in a battlefield of fire and smoke. Mark Trump. The sight hit her harder than any explosion she'd faced overseas. For years, she had wondered if he survived. Now here he was, alive, healthy, and waiting for her. "You still have your jacket," Mark said, his voice thick with emotion. Same one from that day. Emily touched the worn fabric unconsciously. Never could let it go. Mark took a step closer, his voice breaking. "I still hear your voice sometimes. That lullaby. It kept me alive when I wanted to let go." Emily's throat tightened. She had sung without thinking that day, just a medic's desperate attempt to hold a young soldier to consciousness. She never imagined her voice would echo in his memory years later. Then Mark revealed something that took her breath away. After recovering, he had started a foundation for veterans, built around the principle of immediate help, without the endless waiting list that had failed Emily. Its name was no coincidence. He called it Angel Watch, after the lullabies she had sung to him. And now, he wanted her not as a patient, not as a symbol, but as a partner. "Your experience," he said, your fight, your voice. We need all of it, not just for me. For every vet who feels like they've been forgotten. Emily looked down at her dog tags, feeling their weight differently this time. For years, they had been a reminder of who she used to be. Now, maybe they could become a bridge to who she could be again. Downstairs, the streets of New York were chaos. News vans double-parked. Helicopters hovered overhead. Social media was already flooded with theories. PR stunt. Stage reunion. Real hero uncovered. But upstairs, in that quiet room overlooking the city, the truth was unfolding far differently than the headline suggested. Mark laid out the mission of his foundation, a nationwide program designed to cut through the red tape that left veterans waiting months, sometimes years, for care. Emily listened carefully, her medical training kicking in as he explained how civilian trauma centers could partner with military hospitals to provide immediate help. It was bold, it was ambitious, and it was exactly the kind of lifeline she had once needed. Trump watched silently for a moment, then finally spoke. "The cameras downstairs think this is about me. They're wrong. This is about you. About every veteran still fighting battles no one can see." Emily felt the weight of his words. For so long, she had lived as an invisible figure, dismissed as just another face in the crowd. Now, suddenly, the world was watching, and not just to judge her, but to hear her old life as a doctor, her years as a combat medic, her nights surviving the streets. Every piece of her journey had prepared her for this moment, whether she wanted it or not. She looked at Mark and then at Trump. For the first time in years, she realized she had a choice, not just to survive another day, but to stand up again, not as a forgotten soldier, but as a voice for thousands of veterans still struggling in silence. The world thought they were watching a random viral clip. But what was really happening inside that tower was a birth of movement that could change everything. And Emily Martinez was about to decide if she would lead it. On that cold New York morning, the world thought they were watching just another viral stunt. But what unfolded outside Trump Tower was something far more powerful. A moment where two lives, separated by war and circumstance, collided again in the most unexpected way. Emily Martinez had once been invisible, a decorated medic who lost everything to trauma and silence. Yet in one step, she became the voice of a movement, proof that the line between survival and redemption is thinner than most people think. Trump wasn't there to offer pity. Mark wasn't there to play victim. They were there because one woman's courage in Afghanistan had changed everything. And now, together, they wanted to change it again, not just for themselves, but for thousands of veterans still searching for a way home. And as Emily stood in that tower, facing the choice between fading back into the crowd or stepping forward into the spotlight, she realized something important. Sometimes the longest road home doesn't end where you expect. Sometimes it ends where you're needed most. So the next time you pass by someone on the street, ask yourself, what story are you not seeing? What battles are they still fighting? And what difference could you make if you chose to notice them? Because sometimes angels wear combat boots. And sometimes home is found in the most unexpected places. If stories like this moved you, make sure to subscribe to our channel, because we share powerful journeys you won't hear anywhere else.